So the title of this seminar is called Running From It Will Not Save You. 10 things your mama didn't teach you and your father didn't talk about proper estate planning. And the reason why I call it that is because, you know, there's at least this misconception that, ooh, I better not talk about death, or I better not say anything about death, because if I do, then I'm gonna die, or something like that. And so I wanted to make sure that we, you know, start, you know, putting an end to that notion. You know, the goal is to take the uncertainty and the mystery out of estate planning. It is not something that you should be scared of, or, you know, or to be feared, because essentially not having an estate plan, it is an estate plan. It's just a bad one, okay? So we want to sit down and think about, you know, the 5 W's, the who, what, when, where, and why about estate planning. And so by the end of this, if we've answered these questions, then we'll be in much better shape. Who is it that should have an estate plan? The idea is, if you've ever owned a home, owned an automobile, been married, had children, been divorced, if you own something of sentimental value to someone else. And so I want you to when I say sentimental value, I don't want you to think about market value. I want you to think about sentimental value. And the example that I use for that is, you know, I've got, you know, my grandmother, God rest her soul, had this extensive collection of 45s, of records, right? And amongst my family, I mean, you couldn't buy that, right? If you were to put it out on the market, you know, nobody pay, you know, 25 cents for a lot of these. I mean, some of these records, they so worn out, some of the scratches in. I was 20 years old before I realized that I Feel Good wasn't I feel good, right? I knew, you know what I'm saying? I knew it that way, okay? So that being said, you know, the idea is, if it's got sentimental value to somebody else, that, you know, my family, they absolutely love that, you know, and they absolutely love these records, and so that means something to them. But if you've got something of sentimental value, you need to have an estate plan, because somebody behind you is going to have an issue. Some people are going to want those different materials, okay? And so what is a proper estate plan? Now, this is one of those things that you may want to write down. What is a proper, that's the ultimate term, proper estate planning. Proper estate planning will allow you to do a few things. Number one, proper estate planning will allow you to remain in control of what you want to be in control of during your lifetime, okay? So if you want to have the ability to control who gets what and when while you're alive, that is one piece of evidence that says you have proper estate planning. If you want to transfer control to those who you dedicate when or if you become incapacitated, right? So the second thing is, if you become incapacitated, you need to be able to designate who it is that takes control and has the answers, okay? If the estate planning that you do does not allow you to control who it is that takes control when or if you become incapacitated, then that's not effective estate planning. Number 3, and this is the really, really important one, so I'm gonna write these 4 steps. You gotta, once you're gone, you wanna be able to give what you want, to whom you want, when you wanna give it to them, and the way you wanna give it to them, right? So I say it's a 4-part thing. So if you wanna give what it is that you want, to who you want, when you want to give it, and the way that you want to give it to them, okay? So if your estate plan does not accomplish those 4 goals, then it's falling short. And lastly, you want to start rethinking the way you think about estate planning. Estate planning is not simply about death documents, okay? And if you're thinking about estate planning as just about death documents, then I think I want to try to help you rethink this. Estate planning should be about, you know, transferring wealth, and transferring wealth is not just money, okay? We start talking about the information that you have, the knowledge that you have, the experience that you have. You want to be able to transfer that wealth to your children and to the people that follow behind you. And so if it does not do that, then you're falling a little bit short as well. Has everybody seen the movie Brewster's Millions? All right, so you remember Richard Pryor in Brewster's Millions. His uncle left him $30 million. And if he spent all $30 million in 30 days with nothing to show for it, then he was going to be able to receive, I think, $300 million, right? And so the idea, his uncle was doing something like estate planning in that. His uncle was transferring the knowledge about how to save your money, how to use money, how to effectively spend your money, or the alternative, he did it by showing, hey, go spend all this money, get all this out of your system. And if you can find a way to do that, when you actually become and get this $300 million, you're going to be in a much better place by that, right? So if you have proper estate planning documents, your documents can help your children and guide them in the way that you want them to be guided, similar to this Brewster's Million example. When is the best time to start planning your estate? It's like real estate. 5 years ago is always the best time. And so you want to make sure that you take the time to do it while you can, because you never know, we never know when it is that we're going to be able to do it in the future. Where? I have a lot of people that come and say, well, I don't want to do my estate planning documents now. Why is that? Well, because in a couple of years, we're going to go down and move down to Big Mama's house down in South Carolina, and I don't want to have to, I'll do my stuff when I get down there. Well, guess what? If you handle your documents and you get them properly taken care of, properly executed, if it's a valid document here in Maryland or wherever you sign it, it's going to be just as good a document when you get down to Big Mama's house. So you don't want to sit and wait, because we all know sometimes things happen, and we may not always make it down to Big Mama's house, or when we get down to Big Mama's house is something different. So we want to be able to make the decisions while we can, and so that's critically important. Why? Why is it important? Why? I feel healthy. I exercise, right? I don't even want to think about death. But, again, proper estate planning isn't about death or dying. It is also to avoid the chaos that is inevitable if you die without a plan, or if you choose not to create a plan at all. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of this chaos in just a second, because it gets interesting. It gets interesting. What happens if I die without a will or proper estate planning? Well, the reality is the state gets to choose what happens to you, who gets what. Now, it's not one of those, the state's not going to come in and have, Johnny come in and say, the couch and the love seat, they go to Tracy, the kitchen end table, they go to Stacy. Oh, and the big TV downstairs, that's going to Billy. No, that's not what they're going to do, okay? So what they're going to do is they're going to disseminate it based on the state rules that they have, and the state rules and where you live. All right, so and I just want to at least start talking about, use some of the legal language that they use. So let's just say we got a husband, we got a wife, and we got 3 kids, right? Husband, wife, 3 kids. If the husband passes, he leaves 4 issue. Okay, he's got 4 issue. That's the way they define it. And so some states say the wife gets half, the kids split the other half. Okay, some states say all 4 of them they all get a quarter of the assets. And you got certain situations where, let's say one of the children passes before the father does, right? But that child has 3 kids, right? So you've got 6 issue out there, and now it's got to get disseminated in a whole bunch of different ways, and that's the easy stuff, right? This gets very complicated. So the idea is the state decides in that manner how it's disseminated, not that they're going to be, sorting out things and going through your dirty laundry, okay? Chaos versus proper planning. Okay, so there are a few different situations that we can talk about. We can talk about the chaos of not having a will, the chaos of having will-based issues, the chaos of having trust-based issues, and what is the best option, what I believe is the best option to be able to handle these things. When we sit down and look at a trust, we have to sit down and look at what the deficiencies are in all these different things, and so that's what we really want to talk about. Steve McNair. Okay, so now this is where we open it up to the group. Does anybody know who Steve McNair is? Okay, tell me, what is it you know about Steve McNair? Quarterback, Tennessee Titans. Alcorn State, yep. Okay, anybody else? He did, he came to Baltimore. Anything else? He's a Q, there you go. That's the important thing. All right, that we're done, that's it, that's all I got to say. Okay, right, anything else? Does anybody remember any details about his death? Okay, suddenly, that's true. Okay, so now I want you to look at that date, July 4th, 2009, okay? Go ahead and write that down, July 4th, 2009. Now, let me say this, especially for the camera. I do not mean to disparage Steve McNair's character whatsoever. This is my fraternity brother, and I'm absolutely, enamored with him and his lifestyle and what he actually did in his life to create wealth throughout his family. But there is a learning situation to be made, okay? That being said, let's talk a little bit about the details of Steve McNair. Steve McNair in college had 2 children by 2 different women, okay? Afterwards, he got married. I'm gonna go this way. 2 children, 2 different women. Then he got married and had 2 children with his wife. All right, so he's got 5 issues right now, okay? But I want to hold up these other 2 fingers over here because we have 2 different mothers that we have to think about as well. As long as these kids are minors, we got to think about these 2 mothers, okay? So we're sitting here, we got 5 issues, okay? Unfortunately, Steve McNair was passed. When he passed, his mistress shot him in the head and then shot herself, okay? So that's a mess. Nobody wants to wake up in the morning to that mess, okay? So now, we got 5 issues here, right? At this point, if Steve had done his planning correctly, we would at least know what he wanted to have happen to this, all right? But this is, again, July 4th, 2009. October 15th of 2010, right? Over a year later, his wife asks a judge if she'll give $500,000 to herself plus each of her 4 children. Now, this woman was nice. I'm sure there are some women some people that can imagine everybody in that situation would not have treated it the same, right? You can imagine, number one, those ain't my kids, right? Or you can have a whole bunch of different scenarios. But the reality is, had he done proper planning, they could have taken that out of everybody else's hands, okay? And so the idea is you want to get the appropriate planning, all right? And estate planning and the will process takes a tremendous amount of time. And not having will takes even longer, generally. Okay, so we're sitting here looking at January 7, 2011. Now remember, the date that you have written down is July 4th of 2009. It's January 2007, it's still not done. But in here, you also see that he has a $19.6 million estate. All right, so how in the world do I know this? Right, because it's an open process. If you don't take care of your documents and take care of things and keep your house in shape, everybody's going to get to know what's going on. Okay, moving right along. Let's go about will-based issues. All right, James Brown. Now, God rest his soul. My grandmother, excuse me, absolutely loved James Brown. My grandmother loved James Brown so much that he might be kinfolk. I'm just saying. James Brown, I know no woman's supposed to love James Brown like my grandmother loved James Brown. So I promise I'm not trying to disparage James Brown at all, okay? Grandma, I'm not talking about him, okay? But we can learn from James Brown is all I'm saying. Okay, so does anybody know anything about James Brown? He had a will, he had several wives, okay?
Several children by different women,
Yes.
and I don't know if it's settled yet.
You don't know if it's settled yet. Look at when it was. December 25th, 2006. This is 2014. You don't think it's settled?
I'm not sure.
That's exactly, isn't that something? The fact that we're not sure if it's still settled. That means something, right? Okay, so the Godfather of Soul. Let me tell you a little bit about this. And again, Grandma, I'm not disparaging his character. I'm just saying we can all learn from this. Okay, in August of 2000, okay, James Brown actually did sign a valid will. In that valid will, he said he wanted to give half of his money to charity and he wanted to split the other half amongst his 6 children. I don't know exactly how many children's mothers there are. It's not important, Grandma, it's not important. That being said, he remarried in December of 2002 to Miss Tommy, okay? We're just gonna call her Miss Tommy. And they had a child, okay? He remarries to Miss Tommy. Now, the reason why I put that in quotes is because at the time, Miss Tommy was actually married to somebody else, okay? And so it was, hey, there were some issues. I don't know all that story. Grandma, I don't know that story. I'm just saying, Miss Tommy was actually married to somebody else. So eventually, in 2004, James Brown finds out about this, and he gets some legal advice to say, hey, if you want to make sure that your rights are protected, you need to post this. You need to make sure that everybody knows it. Put a picture out and say, hey, this is not what we want to have happen. So he does that. He puts a full-page ad out. I want this